Hello, everybody. This is James Krasnerick here on another live broadcast of Real Steel Sports. Sorry for I have not done a show in a while. College student finals. That's all I gotta say. But I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be speaking to you guys again because you guys have been the best fans ever. I get a lot of feedback from you guys on my shows, through my emails, and I would just like to say thank you very much for the listens and all that, and the plays that I get. Thank you very much. It means a lot. Have an emotional moment here. Anyways, as the title more or less gives it away, this little something I've been breaking down the AFC. Now I was watching the game this Monday night with the Saints and the Seahawks. First off, I'll talk about that in my next segment, the NFC breakdown. I got to give credit for Seattle for absolutely romping the Saints 34-7. That was not something that I expected. I picked New Orleans to win the game. And, yeah, I'm looking like an idiot now. But anyways, let's just talk about the AFC right now. Because the NFL is going down the wire. All the bye weeks have been settled, meaning every team has 4 weeks remaining to go. And as things stand right now, if the season were to end today, here's how the playoff picture would end up breaking down. Wildcard weekend in the AFC would feature the 6th-seeded Ravens traveling to Baltimore to take on the 3rd-seeded Colts, the 5th-seeded Chiefs traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 4th-seeded Bengals, the 6th-seeded 49ers traveling to Detroit to take on the 3rd-seeded Lions, and the 5th-seeded Panthers traveling to Dallas to take on the 4th-seeded Cowboys. In the AFC, the Broncos and the Patriots would have byes, and the Seahawks and Saints would have byes in the NFC. Seattle has already clinched a playoff berth via tonight's victory. I just gotta say real quickly that I'm just gonna take my time on this. The rest of the AFC in the hunt, the Dolphins are the 7th seed at 6-6, and there's a 3-way tie for 8th, 9th, and 10th between the Titans, Steelers, and Chargers. In the NFC, you've got 2 teams at 7-5, the Eagles and the Cardinals, and at the 9th seed, you got the Bears at 6-6, and the Packers at 10th at 5-6-1. Honestly, I can't really come to a decision who I think is going to come out of the AFC. Yes, I know Denver just beat Kansas City 2 out of 3 games. Yes, I know they've got the best offense in the league. Yes, I know Peyton Manning's having one of his best seasons for him, which is kind of scary considering he's thrown for 49 touchdowns some seasons and been sacked 10 times in others, which is ridiculous. But I don't put Denver as the shoe-in to go to the Super Bowl. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to start with each team from the 1st seed to the 6th seed and tell them what a pro and a con is of each team. The Broncos, their biggest positive, obviously, is their offense. The fact that they've got Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas. Now, Noshawn Marino's emerging finally as the running back that people thought he would be when he was drafted in 2009 out of Georgia. You've got Monte Ball, who had some nice runs in the Chiefs game. You've got a good offensive line. And, of course, you got Peyton Manning. I mean, you're going to be able to score points. The defense is looking more and more like they're like a team that actually can hold teams down. I mean, statistically, they don't look as great. I mean, they're 26th in the league at 26 points allowed per game. And they're 27th in yards and 29th against the pass, but they've got a good pass rush. That's what they can take pride in. They got a way. They can get to the quarterback. They got 32 sacks in 12 games, which is almost 3 per game. Which is pretty much what you want nowadays. Nowadays, you got a good offense and a good pass rush, you'll make it. But like I said, the pros are obviously Peyton Manning and co. But the biggest con actually is Peyton Manning. And here's why. When Peyton Manning left the Colts before the 2012 season, he had Tennessee was a choice, Denver was a choice, San Francisco, I believe, was a choice, and Arizona was a choice. Honestly, if I was him, I'd have gone to Arizona. I would have. I would have never gone to Denver. Not with the condition his body was in. And think about it. Look at Peyton Manning's career record in outdoor playoff games. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Like, I'm pulling up his playoff log right now as we speak. His career record in outdoor playoff games. His second year his second year in the playoffs, he lost at Miami. Then a few years later, lost at New York. Then he won at Kansas City, lost at New England. So he's 1-3 so far. Loses at New England again, 1-4. Wins at Baltimore and wins against Chicago in the Super Bowl. That's 3-4 now. He loses at San Diego, loses against the Saints in Miami. So that's what, 3-6? And then he loses at home against Baltimore, 3-7. So Peyton Manning in his career in the playoffs, he's 9-11. And he's 3-7 outdoors. So if you do the math, he is 6-4 in indoor environments. Now, honestly, with the nerve damage and the fact that he loses some grip on the football that he used to have, and he doesn't have the strength anymore, and the fact the weather gets cold and his arm weighs down, why the hell did he go to Denver? That's the only thing that will hold them back from going to the Super Bowl. If Denver gets a little bit of a heat wave, meaning mid to high 40s during the playoffs, they'll go all the way. But if it's cold weather, they're not going to have a chance because Peyton's arm's going to tense up and he'll make him like a bad play at a bad time. New England's sitting at number 2. They will more than likely be the number 2 seed in the playoffs. I mean, Cincinnati's schedule the rest of the way, it's not that bad. They host the Colts, go to Pittsburgh, host the Vikings, host the Ravens. So that's 3 out of 4 wins right there. That's 11-5. I mean, the Colts aren't going to usurp them either. Think about it. I mean, the Patriots' schedule the rest of the way is pretty simple. Home against Cleveland, at Miami, at Baltimore, home against Buffalo. That's 3 wins right there. So that's 12-4 right there. Here's the point: it's this. How will this team fare if they go on the road? Because this team's road record this year has been less than extraordinary. All right, week 1, they go to Buffalo against an average team that would be nothing more than average all year long. They beat Buffalo by 2 points. They go to Atlanta, they beat a slumping Falcons team by a touchdown. Lose in Cincinnati, Brady doesn't throw a touchdown pass. They don't even score an offensive touchdown. They lose at the Jets in overtime. They lose at Carolina, and they barely beat Houston last week. If this team has to go on the road, they're not going to be able to win, purely and simply, because these teams now in the playoffs are that much better. If they're struggling with the Bills, the Jets, and the Texans on the road, imagine what's going to happen if they would have to go to Denver, for say, if the weather is decent and Peyton's having a good game. Or what happens if Indianapolis or New England or Cincinnati does usurp them for the second seed and they have to go there. It's going to be a lot of problems for this team. Speaking of it, since Indianapolis and Cincinnati, Indy's the 3rd seed right now, and their schedule looks decent the rest of the way. At Cincy versus Houston, at Kansas City, and versus Jacksonville. Problem with them is they've been so spotty the last few weeks. They have been. They've been so spotty. I mean, and against Denver, you know, Indianapolis won that game, but since then they've been 3-2, barely beat Houston, got pummeled by the Rams, barely beat Tennessee, got pummeled by the Cardinals, and barely beat Tennessee again. You're looking at a team now that's becoming a very, very average football club. They'll win the division. I mean, if you look at the playoff race right now, they need to win one game. If they win next week in Cincinnati, or if Tennessee loses, they're done. They'll win the division. But the pro and the con for Indianapolis is the pro, they got Andrew Luck, and they got a pass rush with Robert Mathis, who's the leading sacker this year, 15.5 sacks. Problem with it is they don't have much else to work with. Andrew Luck's getting hit way too much. The receiving core is just getting nowhere. Trent Richardson trade is proven to blow up in their face. Other than Chuck Pagano's toughness, being a former defensive coordinator for the Ravens, I don't see much light at the end of this tunnel come playoff time for this team. You know, they have to go to if they have to go on the road against teams like New England, Cincinnati, Denver, Baltimore, whatever, it'd be tough for them. Speaking of Cincy, as the 4th seed, they have a relatively simple schedule. I predict them to go 3-1 over their final 4 with wins over the Colts, Vikes, and Ravens, and I think they will lose at Pittsburgh in the rematch from Week 2. Maybe because I'm a Steeler fan, maybe just because I think the Steelers are good enough at home to beat them. But I digress. Cincinnati's biggest plus is the fact that their pass rush is lethal. Even with Geno Atkins gone, they can still get the quarterback. And if you look at the way that they've been winning lately, the last 5 games, for actually the last 4, I should say. I mean, they lost at Miami and they lost at Baltimore. 2 games they could have won and I think should have won. Then they go to Cleveland, they crush the Browns, and they go down to San Diego and beat the Chargers. They're beating the teams they should by big margins, and they're beating the teams that are somewhat on their level in close games. But if they got to go on the road, they're losing, But I think the biggest con for this football team is Andy Dalton. I mean, you look at Andy Dalton's numbers this year. I mean, if you compare him to his career, in terms of his career, his completion percentage is second compared to what it was last year in terms of his career. He's on pace to throw for more touchdowns than he did last year. He's on pace to throw way more interceptions. His QBR is lower than last year. His pass rating is lower. So, I mean, he's not been playing particularly well lately. He's not been playing, like, he had that one great game against the Jets, and other than that, his season has been completely average statistically. It's been, like, pretty much a poor man's Joe Flacco. And I think he's going to hold them back again. Because Cincinnati's not that great at home field advantage. They would need it, and they're not going to get it. The next team is the 5th-seeded Chiefs, and the biggest plus for them is the fact that is Jamal Charles. Out of the backfield and run the football, he's a beast. Best all-around back in the league as far as I'm concerned. Better than Peterson. Not as good as a pure running back in terms of running the football as Peterson, but you look at everything else. Let's put it this way. When it comes to catching passes, Peterson's playing checkers and Charles playing chess. That's pretty much how I should put it. The biggest con for them is everything else. Alex Smith has been a big plus for them this year, but their receiving core, other than Dwayne Bowe, is very, very average, and I don't even think Dwayne Bowe's that good. Their pass rush is starting to slow down. Their defense has been chewed up the last few weeks. I mean, they've given up, I believe, 76 points the last 2 home games? For an average of 38 points a game? That ain't going to get it done. Now the Ravens at 6th seed. I'm not so sure the Ravens are going to get the 6th seed, because you look at their schedule, they go to Detroit, they host New England, they go to Cincinnati. Potentially they could lose 3 of those 4. Like, I think they'll go 2-2. I think they'll lose at Cincinnati, and I think they'll lose at Detroit. You look at the other teams, such as the Dolphins. The Dolphins' schedule is a lot harder. The Titans' schedule is... It's not impossible, but I don't really think that they're going to be going anywhere. The Steelers would have to win out and get some help. So I think Baltimore's pretty much going to win the 6th spot in the playoffs. Their biggest problem is Joe Flacco. He is a question mark. He can be their greatest con. He can be their greatest pro. If he goes out there and throws 11 touchdowns and no picks in a playoff season like he did last year, they'll win the Super Bowl. If not, then, they're going to go out in first round. If I had to pick right now which team out of the AFC that I like to go to the Super Bowl, I really can't pick one. I mean, I'm literally, like, every team's got such a pro and every team's got such a con. It's literally almost freaking possible to pick what team is the best. Because you got Denver, of course. You got Peyton Manning, but you got the cold weather. New England's not traveled well. Cincinnati, Andy Dalton, he's a Jekyll and Hyde. The Colts, Luck's getting hit, and other than Luck and Robert Mathis, they ain't got nothing. The Chiefs' defense getting chewed up, and the Ravens and Joe Flacco such turmoil. I don't know what to pick. I don't know who to pick. But if I had to pick one team right now, I think I would pick Denver. And the reason why is, look at the game last year between the Ravens and the Broncos. In my opinion, that was probably the best playoff game that the NFL has seen since Super Bowl 43. Maybe the Cardinals-Packers game in 2009 is a candidate for that, but it's about it. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that, how can I put this? The Ravens still had to go into Denver, and Joe Flacco had to play one of his best games for them to win that game. Joe Flacco in that game was 18 of 34 for 331 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, Torrey Smith had 2 touchdowns. Jacoby Jones had the long touchdown run, and Denver. Trenton Holiday was a beast in that game. But I think this Denver team is deeper because Julius Thomas has emerged this year, and they got Wes Welker. So I think if I had to pick a team to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, I think I would pick Denver because I just don't see enough positive out of the other 5 teams to go into Denver and to win a game. But that being said, Peyton has to play well. He can't go out there and throw a pick when he's on the run in double overtime against the blitz. He can't do that. If he does, the Broncos will lose. He's got to be making good decisions like he's been making this year. I mean, he's got to be throwing the football a lot more intelligently than he did. If not, then the Broncos won't go anywhere. All right, that does it for the first segment tonight. I will be back very, very shortly with my predictions from the NFC, so stay tuned.